Hello and welcome to my channel, Spirituality with V. I'm very, very excited. I have a very special guest and her name is Venia. So it's Venia and Venia. What are the
That's
chances?
right.
So Venia had an NDE and she's had an OBE as well. And she's also written a book, which she's going to show you. And her book has fabulous things in it, but also she has other things which are not yet in her book and or not in her book. And I'm going to question her about those things as well. So this should be very, very exciting. So over to you, Venia. Welcome.
Hello, welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And listen, um, it's not just the fact that we're both Venas that I agreed to speak with you, but also the British have been so supportive of my book. As a matter of fact, they're probably head in head with the United States in purchasing the book. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I
So I
didn't.
just want to give a shout out to my British brothers and sisters. And I did live there for many years. Um, so I just, I'm excited to do this and say hello.
That's fantastic
And
news.
I'm sorry, you did say.
Yeah,
Show
the
them.
UK. Keep it going. Well done. It's
Oh
great to
yes. Oh yes.
actually
The British have a very open mindset, on a lot of things. So it's nice. It's very nice to be able to talk with you and your audience.
thank you. And it's very reassuring to know that in the UK we've got the awakening going on just as much as in the US. So that's great news.
And maybe even more so. Seriously.
Wow, I'm so
Yeah,
excited to hear that. Yeah, good. Okay, so shall we start with your near-death experience? Would you like to tell us what happened?
sure. I foolishly on a trip to Italy, I took some NoDoz and some vitamins, and I took probably, I don't know, maybe 10. Who knows? I just was shoving them in my mouth. And once I got to Italy, it was a class trip my parents sent me to, and I was excited to be there, but I was tired. And I'm shoving these pills in my mouth to stay awake because when we arrived, it was like basically daytime there. And I knew I wouldn't get a chance to sleep right away. So I took these pills, and within minutes, not even 10, maybe 15 at the most, I started feeling really jittery and like I could jump out of my skin, and my heart was racing. And I get on the bus. We had loaded all our luggage, and I sat on this side bench on the bus, but I sat sort of like this because I was like literally jumping. And I started hearing my heart race, and it's such a frightening, scary feeling, Vina. When you can actually hear it in your ears, that was the only time in my life I've ever heard that. And even still now, I've never heard that before, but it was racing so fast in my ears. And then it got to a peak, and then it just started slowing down, and I'm hearing it slow down. And it got to a point where it was like boom, boom. And next thing I know, there was no boom. It was nothing. And right at that point, my spirit, I jerked really hard, and my spirit just popped right out of my body. And I'm sure that was the exact point that I literally died, you know? Um, and once my spirit popped out of my body, um, I didn't feel dead. I felt more alive than I was when I was in my body. But not only that, I saw things so much differently. I saw everything all at once. And when I say that to people, they don't quite understand what I mean by that. But
It's a very difficult concept, I think, to because we've got eyes that focus on things, don't we? Even though we've got an awareness of other things, it's still we only see through our eyes. So the idea of being
Exactly.
able to see everything is not really a human experience. So it's very difficult to comprehend how you
Absolutely.
can see
You
everything in
get it.
layers.
You get it.
I've
You-
had an experience, so yeah, I do.
Yes. So, I mean, and at that point, your consciousness. So, y- just like you said, you're not seeing with your eyes, you're seeing with your consciousness, and your consciousness looks at things through a omnidirectional perspective. So
Absolutely.
basically, to describe that, I can see behind me, in front of me, to the side of me, everywhere. And that's how I was seeing once I popped out. And not only that, I saw the most wonderful flows of energy throughout the bus and outside of the bus. I was seeing these streams of like what I can only describe as electrical currents, um, and just streaming everywhere. Um, the animate objects, as far as like the people, as well as the inanimate objects. Um, for instance, like this has an energy flow. There's a flow of energy that comes from this. I mean, it's not the same as the flows that were coming from the people on the bus, but there is an energy for everything is surrounded by energy. Um, and that I was 17 when I had this experience. So as a 17-year-old, that was an entirely groundbreaking new thought or new revelation. It was just amazing. But anyway, I looked at my body, and my body hardly had any energy coming from it. It was such a dull um, uh, glow around my body. It was there, but it was just very dull and not animated at all. Whereas the people that were on the bus were talking, and some were sleeping, and there was still a bunch of energy coming from them. And I still didn't realize I was dead at that point, but I just thought, wow, this is strange. Like my body, which doesn't look like a body, by the way, it's like, like you're a slab of meat or something, and a huge slab of meat. And at the time, when I was in my teens, I only weighed 95 pounds. I'm not sure what that is in you guys is in conversion, but 95 pounds is not big at all. I was very skinny, but I looked like a really big beached whale or something. But anyway, so I'm observing all this. I'm observing the traffic out on this huge highway we were on. Um, I remember hearing and seeing energy from these mountains. Italy has a lot of mountains, and I was hearing this energy and seeing this energy coming from these mountains, and the people on the highway, on the traffic, um, and they were racing. Italians drive like nuts. Um, but I'm okay with that because I kind of drive like that way too. but yeah, like, and I'm processing all this simultaneously. And at one point I even tried to I had to rein in my consciousness because the bus was physically moving, and my consciousness was not really moving with the bus. So at one point I almost came out of the bus. Um, but I in the back of my consciousness, I willed myself to stay with the bus, and I did. Um, because at that point I didn't know what to do with my body or my consciousness. I mean, I could have literally thought myself to be with the mountains and been there if I wanted to. Um, but I wasn't ready to make that leap yet at that point. Um, And I went to the front of the bus. I willed myself to the front of the bus and I hovered there and I walked right through this guide who was explaining where we were in English um, to everyone on the bus. I literally hovered right through them and went to the front of the bus because the bus driver was just like cursing in Italian. And now that I think of it, you know, a lot of us were young on that bus. He should have been a little bit more, should have
Polite and
watched his
respectful.
mouth. That's the first time I thought of that, by the way. But that's what drew me to drew me to him. And I didn't hear him, but the energy, the vibrations of his anger and his uh frustration is what drew me to him. And that's why I went to the front. And when I went there, I saw him, but I saw beyond him his physical. I saw his I would term it now his astral body. Um, but I saw like points throughout his body that were dimmed and dark. And I know now that that's where he carried like some sickness in him. He was quite sick. Um, he was very bellicose, very angry person, and that was within him. Um, and you know, as I've thought about and processed this near-death experience throughout all these years, I understand seeing that specifically helps me understand how much our emotions and our negative energy affect our health, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I
filters
can,
into the body, doesn't it? I think it starts off as energy and then filters into the body and
it
sits in our
does.
cells.
It does. It really does. And it creates blockages and you know, I'll never forget a friend of mine told me, and this was years after the near-death experience, she developed a lump on the side of her neck. And it coincided with her starting a new job somewhere she really didn't want to be. And soon after she got this lump, and then months into the job, she realized, you know what? I actually love this job. I love it. And the lump disappeared. And every time I think of her telling me story, I'm taking back to the bus driver and I make, you know, that correlation, you
Yeah.
know, of all that. So that's definitely something to think about, you know. But anyway, I saw his ailments. I even saw flashes of past lives he lived. And mind you, all of this is coming to me, layers upon layers of information is just coming to me while I'm also simultaneously aware of the drivers out on the highway. There were animals out on the highway. And I'm seeing all this and I'm just processing all of this stuff all at once. Um, but enough to where I understood everything I saw. It's burned into my brain. Um, but anyway, I saw some of his past lives. And then very soon after that, I was overlaid with a spiritual energy, a presence. And this presence gathered my consciousness very lovingly, though. It wasn't forced, it wasn't negative, nothing was negative about it, but it gathered me up. I remember we went up through the bus, but not outside the bus. I was taken right into another realm. And that is really where everything just kind of begins. Everything
Please do
starts.
tell. Yeah, please
Huh?
do tell. Please do tell. So
Well, we landed into this beautiful, pure, the whitest of white. I mean, this is a white envelope. I can't even tell you how the realm was literally whiter than this, um, because it was so pure and so pulsing, um, with with love from. I'm almost teary thinking about it, but it's so much love and so you're in a spiritual atmosphere, but there's so many different um levels to this realm. Um and it's like you're experiencing pulses of almost everything in this realm. I'm sorry, I'm kind of like trying to find the right words. Imagine if someone suspended you, put you in suspension on a beautiful cloud that just fed you with love and peace and perfect harmony, perfect harmony. And your soul is just absorbing this. And within that cloud, you're just seeing so many different levels of creation and of the spiritual world, you know, while I was in this realm. And by the way, as I told you, Vina, this is how my soul, I had someone create this image for me because this is how I was in that realm. I was so connected, my whole entire being was so connected with everything. And that's how I understand everything is one. Everything is connected. And in this realm, I connected with my soul, and where I understood that our soul is the highest attribute, the highest expression of our individual self. And that soul is indestructible. It is so connected to the source, which, you know, some people call God. I call it the source because it's the source of everything. Um, and
Sounds
I,
very beautiful. It sounds incredibly beautiful, incredibly expansive. And I quite often find that words, human words, are really not
they're
sufficient,
not, they're not.
adequate. We don't have vocabulary. We don't have words to describe these kinds of experiences. And even the best words, it doesn't give you an experience of what it's actually like to experience these
Uh,
things.
Thank you for saying that, and thank you for understanding, because I'm really struggling to try. As I close my eyes, I'm there, but I just can't put it into adequate words for you. And I want to so bad, because we all need to know how love is just the primeval bottom line to everything, everything. And it's really the only power. Um, but
I
yes,
think I think people find it hard to believe that actually, when we say the words, love is the greatest power in the universe, or love is the greatest force in the universe. We say the words, but I really don't think that we even have the human comprehension to understand what that actually means. We could say, oh, well, love is energy, or it pervades everything, or it's everywhere, but the words are just inadequate. They just don't meet
and
the actual experience of that.
it's so true, because a lot of times, like you say, we can say love, and a lot of people think, I love, my house, I love my dog, I love my parents, I love my children, and that is love. But this love that I experienced over there, it was so beyond this human love that we have for each other. There it is literally a force. It is literally a a it's literally a presence. It is literally a power. It's a constant power, and it goes beyond that human love, you know. And I do kind of go into that quite a bit in the book, but excuse
I
me.
actually don't think that the human body is capable of holding that love. So I think you have to kind of be out the body and be part of that realm or that energy, because in the body, when these kinds of things are experienced, it's almost like the human body can't contain it. It's just so powerful and so beyond what we know and we understand. It's just not able to stay in the body. And when it does, I mean, the first thing it'll do is it'll just make you cry. The tears will just fall down your
Well,
eyes.
right, we get overwhelmed.
Yeah, that you actually, I can't contain this. It's just not possible in this body. So there is that huge love that's beyond. But also you went to many different places, didn't you? You were given a guided tour of heaven and realms and
Yes, well, within that right realm, I did see different levels of creation. Um, but I was literally, and mind you, while I'm experiencing all the realm and seeing these different levels of creation and connecting with my soul, um, and all of that is going on again simultaneously. Um, I was not, I was me and I was aware of me, but not, I was so much more than me. Um,
your identity had shifted. So you weren't Vina anymore. You
Absolutely.
were a spiritual being that was just in touch with everything, just connected and merging with absolutely everything in the universe.
Exactly. I didn't lose me, the me of me, but I expanded to my highest expression of myself. And I got to tell you, Vina, I've got a bad temper at times. I'm extremely impatient, and I was back then, probably even worse. But that was not part of when I expanded into my highest self, those qualities were not there in my realization of my entire self. Those qualities, I couldn't even think a negative type of thought. There was none of that type of thing. Um, and you know, I think that should be our goal um, at some point. I mean, we're here having a human experience, so naturally we're going to feel human things, and we should, because that's why we're here, to learn how to deal with the energy here in the most positive way we possibly can, and the most loving way. However, our goal should be that to connect with that pure divine love as often as we can, you know, and we can do it, and everyone can do it. Um, and we
Do
should
you
make
see,
a practice of that. Pardon me?
yeah, do you see meditation as a way of being able to sometimes touch those states and to
Oh
be
my
in those
gosh. For some people, Vina, yes. Now, I got to be honest with you. I can't meditate. I've tried it. I've done the chanting, the this, the that. I'm horrible with it. However, I have seen meditation work almost miracles with some people, especially some of my close friends. It has literally changed their entire um who they were, and it's amazing. And so I am a very strong supporter of it. It's just not for me. Fortunately for me, I can make that connection like this. As we're sitting here, I've been in a sort of almost meditative mood or state, um, even though, you know, you may not be aware of it, but where the information just flows right through. Um, and I'm seeing things. But I think that was a gift from my NDE and my experience through the void, but I am a huge um, proponent for meditation for some people, and I know that you are. That is your thing.
My thing. Yes,
Your thing.
and I
That's what
wish I had a penny for every time somebody said to me, I can't meditate. I wish I had 1 penny because I'd be,
you'd be.
very well off.
No, but I mean, we all do meditation, in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
through
absolutely.
when you're gardening, when you're painting, when you're doing something that you love doing and you're absorbed in it, that's a meditation as well. Some people do it walking, some people do it while they're in the gym. So there are different ways to do it. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I tell about in the book, one of the most profound insights I had in my entire life. I was reading the Agatha Christie Miss Marple book, and I love her books, and I love Miss Marple books, and I zoned out and was in another realm and had such a magnificent insight on something I needed, just by reading this murder mystery. So that definitely is a form of meditation. Anytime we connect to our higher self, I believe that's basically meditation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 So yes.
So can I take you back to something that you've mentioned in your book? You've said the geometric pattern to source is perfect.
Yes.
I'm very
Oh yes. Oh yes. And I just felt that in my gut when you said that, because it is. So in the white realm, I told you it is perfect harmony, perfect peace, perfect stillness. And within that complete stillness, I started seeing these geometric patterns. One in particular, it was just so perfect.
Have
um,
you been able to reproduce that in any way, shape, or form? Because usually these patterns are not easily to replicate. Were you able
no,
to?
they're not. Um, and honestly, no, I have not seen it. And it was so complex. Um, and that's a good question, because I do have a designer, and I probably, if I spent time with her, I could try to get her to design it for me. But this pattern it just you don't see it, but it's there, and it's kind of prevalent throughout everything. There's geometric patterns to love, believe it or not, that are present. They're omnipresent throughout everywhere. um because I also saw them out in space. There were different type patterns, but
Would you
not.
say then that we're living in a matrix? That actually it's the geometric patterns that are the construct of the universe? Would you say that?
Well, when you say a matrix, would you be referring to a spiritual matrix, a
Well, I
divine
think
matrix?
I think it could be both. I think there could be a physical matrix, which is then that comes from the divine matrix, which I would imagine would be the original construction, and then it came down into a denser form that's become our reality.
Okay. If you put it that way, I'll agree with that. But a lot of times, and not you, but a lot of times people say, we're just in a matrix, which denotes to me that it may not be real, but this is very real. Because one of the things that I saw, while on the other side, was this is literally a part of the spiritual world. It's just um, the view is just to a certain point, but it's like if you have a glass of water and you put an egg in the glass of water, um, the water existence, the spiritual world, and that egg is us, and we can't really see outside that egg, but yet we're still in the spirit, the water, the spiritual world. So if that's what you mean by matrix, yes, yes, it's very real. But it's just a dimmed down version, or a different view of creation, of existence.
And also, I remember you saying that you've been taken to many different places. Like, for example, you went to a water world, and I remember you saying that the beings in the water world are actually the ones that are running this part of the matrix. Would you like to tell us
No, no,
about that?
no. They're not running. No, what my guy told me, they're not running Earth or anything like that. In other words, a lot of the creatures were seeded from this water world
I see.
and brought here.
Right.
Yes, yes. A lot of them came from this water world. And yes, my guy, that was one of the planets it took me to. And it was an incredible blue sun. And I painted it because it was just gorgeous. It was a blue sun. And I remember being 17 thinking, how can this be a sun? Sun are only supposed to be yellow, but that was their sun. And it was nothing but water on this world, very little landmass anywhere. And when my guide took us underwater, at first we were not visible to these creatures under there. And I guess it was so that I could sort of see the different creatures. And Vina, let me tell you something. To this day, I still am in awe of what I saw, because there were algae under this water that were literally sentient beings, like intelligent, like you and I, intelligent just about. And it was algae. And I don't know if you've heard my story about the manatee. I saw this huge creature that was upright under the water, really fat. And it was so intelligent, and it was literally conversing with these mer people, and I'll talk about them in a minute. But like you and I are talking, it was like conversing in their language to each other. And I had no clue what this creature was at all. And years later, I was in the Army, the Air Force, and my last station was in Florida. And I went over a friend's house, and she had a dock, and this creature came. This creature, are we still there?
Yes, yes.
Okay. This creature swims up to her dock, and I just instantly fell to my knees, and I burst out in tears, because this was the exact same, it was a manatee. And it was the exact same creature I saw under the water on this other world. And I had never even heard of a manatee, let alone seen a manatee. So when I saw this creature here, it was like a personal confirmation for me of all what I had went through with my guide. And it was just beautiful. It was just beautiful. But anyway, there were mer people down there, and they're not like Ariel. The ones I saw were not cute.
They were not Disney mer people.
No, not at all. Not at all. They're actually a little frightening to look at, but not because they were hostile, because they weren't. They weren't hostile. They weren't anything like that, but it's just how they looked.
They don't match our ideas of beauty, like the
No,
ideas that we have in terms of what human beauty is and the things that we regard as beautiful. They're just not like
exactly.
that.
Exactly. And there were several different types of them, of these mer people. And someone actually criticized me for saying, why don't I just say mermaids? Because I don't say mermaids, because mermaid is a a term for the feminine. There were male, female, and I think an androgynous species of the mermaids. Some I couldn't even tell what they were. Um, and they were different colors. They were like a shimmering green. They had albino ones, pink. Um, and some of them like didn't have a tail, but they had like octopus legs. But arms like us, but very powerful and very broad. And some of them did have the tail, some of it had spindles, I guess is what you would call it, going down their back. Some of the gills where they breathe from were on their face right here. Some were here. And they just were different and not, I still in my mind try to process their looks because they were so different, but
Yeah,
they were intelligent.
yeah, you're saying that, but at the same time, our ancient Egyptian gods have, bird heads or cats' heads and this kind of thing. So it's not really so out there that there could be creatures that we don't see on planet
Yeah.
Earth that actually do have different limbs and different constructions in different places in ways that we haven't seen. I think that's more than entirely possible.
And that's brilliant for you to say that, because you're absolutely right. I think that when we do see those images you're speaking of, then it's passed off as, oh, these are either fairy tales or these are just what's the word I'm looking for?
Imagination, that they're not actually really real, that they're
Yeah,
just
but
movies.
there's another word, but anyway, it's just passed off like that instead of these creatures really
Fantasy.
existed.
Yeah, like they're fantasy, that they don't have any.
Right.
Yeah,
But where do people get their fantasies from?
yeah. Well, let's look at the Sphinx in again in Egypt.
Exactly.
You've got that lion body, and is it the lion body and the human head? Oh, I
Head.
can't remember. Yeah,
Right.
and huge. Why does anybody bother to make something look like that? If you were just doing artwork, you could make
Exactly.
smaller versions. So there was particular importance, I believe, in them
Absolutely.
having made them so huge and to last so long, that I think, that in itself says how significant they were at that time.
I complete net. They'll see that's another brilliant observation. You're right. Why would they make it so big? Why?
Mm,
There's a reason for that. So
absolutely.
yeah. So, but anyway, these mer people, at one point when we were underwater, my guide widened its orb. And at that point, we drew attention because I was within my guide's orb. And we drew their attention. So my guide was making us viewable. And they saw us and next thing you know, it's like there was a crowd of them gathering around, all around us, behind the orb, to the side, everywhere. And they were coming, and it wasn't just the mer people, it was these other creatures. There were fish with almost human heads. And there I go again sounding nuts, but that's what it was.
Sounded like you were the stars of the show then, that they've all come to see. Oh,
Right.
there's a human, a funny human with a head and two arms and legs. Let's see this peculiar human.
Right. And we weren't I don't know how they saw us, to be honest with you, because like I said, my guide, we were orbs, but my guide was a big glowing orb. But that's a good point. I don't know how my guide displayed us to them. Do you know what I mean? So they could have
Absolutely,
been
yeah.
seeing us as a human.
Yeah, because you could have felt yourself to be an orb, or you could have felt you and your guide to be an orb, but they could have been actually seeing your actual form, like on the front cover of your book. It could be,
Exactly.
oh gosh, look at that strange being with a head and shoulders and this long body. Where did that come from?
But you're right, though. Seriously, I don't know how they viewed us. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. They could have been any, like, yeah, right. And they're probably thinking, ugh, ugh. But um, but they started all speaking to each other and gossiping about us. Um, and my guide was actually able to communicate to them. Um, in their different languages. And some of it was pulses of these shooting lights that came out. Some were bubbles. Um, um, and some I know that they sent out these like sound waves within the water because you could almost see them. And it was just fascinating. But the most fascinating thing to me were these structures, these buildings underneath. Um, and they're bioluminescent, so they had their own um lights within them, but they were the exact same color of their sun. The light, the way these buildings glowed, they were that exact color. And I remember being so fascinated about that. And these structures were just, all around, like everywhere, as far as, I could see. Um, and there were, all different creatures coming in and out of those structures, but we had definitely drew a huge crowd. Um, and I didn't mention the other, and I'm sorry for that, the other beings that I saw out in space. My guide took us to another section of space, and there were these beings that were, I call them the crystal beings, because depending on how they moved and how they shifted, they were either invisible or not. Um, and the one thing about them was they had vertical slits, so their eyes were like this, covering their entire face, no mouth, no nose. Um, and they were, to me, pretty frightening also to look at. Um, and we did not get up close enough to them for us to interact with them, but my guide made sure I saw enough of these beings to know what they look like and how they interacted with their ship. They could merge right with their ship and come out of it. And they were like a security force. They provided security. And, I could understand that because they could go invisible almost. So they would be a great,
Did you
security.
have any idea who they were securing? Did you have?
No, no. But when my guy told me that they provided security for this section of space, uh, my awareness that my guide gave me, it panned out. Um, and there were several planets um, that I could see that had, you know, beings on them, and they were providing security for them,
Right, so
for some of
perhaps
those beings. Pardon?
sector of the universe, a sector of the universe, or a sector of
Yes,
a planetary system. Yeah,
yes, yes. And of course, me being 17 and the most unscientific mind in the world, um, my guide tried to explain to me, where we were in relation to Earth, and I do have it in the book. It's such a convoluted way of explaining it, but
half the way. very far away.
But
Light years, maybe. Billions of
I
light years
wouldn't have
away.
I have no clue what a light year, like, I don't understand that. I can't grasp a light year, but I know from being out in space, Vina, I gotta tell you, it's so overwhelmingly immense. It's
I think, Vina, you know that people are here on Earth, which is a great thing. We're caught up and fascinated with information and knowledge that it kind of tickles our intellect. And I think we're caught up with it and we love it and we want to read about it and discover it. But actually, when it comes to knowing rather than just playing with information in your head, the knowing is just there. It's automatic at that level. You don't need to know how many billions of light years. You
right,
are just connected with it, and it's just a knowing within your being.
right,
Okay, and you can accept it at that level. But
right,
here on Earth, you're saying, "Oh, well, I wonder how far that is, or what
right.
sector of the universe is that?"
But
Yeah,
no,
because
that's
that's what our
true.
intellectual brain does. That's what we do. We weigh everything up. We need to know everything. That's just the nature of a human being on Earth.
Right, right. That's so, so true because I did understand, um, like when my guy tried to show me um the actual planets that these beings protected, I understood where they were when I was out there and
Mm.
how they, were positioned out there. But for me to tell you now, it'd be like you could put a gun to my head and I just wouldn't be able to do it, you know? So, so yeah, you're absolutely right with that. But
And
go ahead.
fantastic thing you've talked about is autism. I know it's in your book, but your guide explained to you what actual autism is.
Well, it did. And I've been reluctant to talk about it because someone said that basically my talking about it was sort of saying, hey, autism is bad, which it's so not. It's so not, but it's bad. And you're drawing attention to the negative aspect of it. So I'm very reluctant to actually speak on autism and autistic people. I'd rather they just read it. But I will say this. I will say this. Autism is not only a very divine thing, but the the autistic people are operating 1 foot there and 1 foot here
Yep, absolutely.
simultaneously.
Yeah. Hmm.
And to be able to do that is to me amazing. It's amazing. So and not only that, it is a way that some souls that are autistic chose to experience life on earth. Okay. So it was a choice. Despite how it came about, despite how um, maybe some people weren't born autistic, but then eventually they became autistic. No matter the situation, it was that soul's choice to view the world through those type of eyes and that mindset. And mind you, back when I was 17, which was quite a bit ago, autism was not highly known. It was not known, and it certainly was not really discussed like it is now. Um, and I'm not even sure if at that age I even heard of autism. Um, that
It
and
certainly wasn't around when I was growing up, so
right,
it wasn't a word,
exactly,
it wasn't used, it
exactly.
wasn't experienced. No one actually knew what it was. And I have to say, going through school, I would say, because I have been a special needs teacher, so for
Oh,
many years, so I have had a lot of experience with autistic children, and I have to say, as I was growing up, I didn't experience anyone. There was always one naughty person in the class. So in a class of 30, there'd always be the one joker or the one that just wouldn't follow the rules or would make everybody laugh or you know, be very different from the other children who just followed, you know, whatever they were told. Um, so I don't remember that. So it does seem as though it is something. It's a condition that's come about later. But it's unfortunate that we have labels and we use labels the way that we do, and often they're medical labels. I mean, I have
yeah.
my own ideas and experiences with autism that's very, very different from other people mainly. But then I think I also have been through a transition with how I've experienced it. And then consequently, when I've changed my own views about it because of certain um, uh, realizations that I've had, then the experiences around me has changed. So whereas, so I've grown up not knowing it, then I've observed it, and then I've had some experiences where it seems to be quite difficult to um, manage situations where you're expecting quite different kinds of behaviors to be treated all in one way and to do one particular thing rather than recognize that things need to be done differently. But Vina, the most fantastic thing, I did supply teaching for 1 year. And so I was in sometimes 5 different schools a week. It could be more than that sometimes. And just before that happened, that particular year, I had the realization that the reason why children are autistic, and I'm saying that because it's a label and it's not one that I agree with, but it's one that we understand, is because they're actually closer to source. They've cut themselves off from the normal everyday things. So they're quite specific about what they will engage in, but they're closer to source. And ever since I had that thought, what happens without fail in every single classroom that I went into, a teacher would say to me, "Oh, don't worry about so and so. You know, they're going to be upset that I'm not here, but you know, don't worry. Um, that they might make a fuss, but their assistant will sort them out. You don't worry. You carry on with the rest of the class." And every single class that I went into, whoever that child or children were, they would look me straight in the eye. I would look them in the eye. I could tell that they were thinking, she knows. That's what they were thinking, she knows. I never had one problem with one child in any school, in any class throughout that whole year, because they knew that I knew, you're here to play a role, you're connected to source in a way that people generally aren't. And they just knew from looking into my eyes, and I never, not once, not one child. In fact, the opposite would happen. I would get those children really cooperate with me and want to work with me. So
You know, and that's really beautiful, and you're spot on with that, spot on. Um, is that a British word? Okay. Trying to be sensitive here.
we'll make we'll make a British citizen out of you yet, Vina.
I have no problem with that at all. Um, but you know, one of the things when I was shown that, um, and like I just told you, it was not, you didn't hear of it. I didn't hear of it. It wasn't in society to know about autism. But one of the things my guy told me, um, I asked, you know, basically, why am I having this? Like, why am I going through this? You know, and my guide said, you will understand in the short term, but more so in the long term. Well, this is the long term. Okay. And the wisdom of some of what my guide showed me is it's just brilliant, you know. I mean, my guy talked about our soul agendas, LGBTQ. Back then it wasn't LGBTQ, but you know, I saw and understood gay people back then, and that there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. um, and the process of incarnating, and you know, this information that I got is just so relevant now, and it's so needed, you know. And so I can never thank, I guess, my guide said I agreed to have it, but I can never thank my guide enough for their wisdom and what they showed me, and some of the things that I saw, and like taking me out into space. Back then, Bina, the government was like, no, there's no aliens, there's no other life anywhere, we're it, you know. And even today, to some point, I mean, I think the British government is a little bit more open with it, but here in the United States, it's horrible. They're still basically denying it. And maybe there's life, well, it could be, and it's like, come on. But anyway,
Of course,
so
in Britain, we get all the crop circles, don't we? That there's a greater amount of crop circles in Britain than
right,
there
and
are other places. So, and you did talk
abs-
about that.
I
Yeah.
just talked about crop circles on my last Q&A session.
Listen to that. Yeah, that was amazing. I
Oh
think
my,
what you said is true. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Would you like
yes,
to tell
yes.
our audience what you think about
Pardon?
crop? Would you like to tell our audience what you think about crop circles?
Well, yeah, basically, I mean, the ones that are, and it's funny because you hear people saying, hey, they're uh, Billy Joe Bob and so made them. But some of them, they're so complex. There's just no way any human could make them. And they're so perfect. And so the ones that are real, those are actually messages from alien species to other alien species visiting Earth. Basically,
That
they're,
makes the most sense to me, as to any of the other theories that I've heard. That makes the most sense to me.
but it's the
That
truth. It's
communication
like,
with each other.
if if you're going to a new country, you need a guide, right? If it's your first time or you haven't been there often, you need a guide. And that's basically, crop circles are information for other species on what's going on here on Earth, and different things that they're doing here. They may have adjusted the frequency of a volcano, and or they, hey, there's a new nuke, there's some nukes over here, and the aliens are like transmitting this information to each other, via the crop circles. And
If they've got the intelligence to land here, to do that in the night, no one knows or sees them, and the patterns are intricate and beautiful, and they look very clever as well. If you can kind of work out what they could possibly be saying, and then for them to communicate that to each other, it must lead to the fact that not only are there these beings out there, but they actually do have care and compassion for us in the way that they're managing their movements around Earth and their communication with each other. Not saying they're all like that, of course. I think throughout the whole
oh
universe, they
yeah,
are good,
yeah,
and I think that's the way the universe keeps balance, by having the duality, by having good versus evil, good and bad, all of that. But it does beg the question, if there are ones here that are able to kind of leave us alone to get on with what we're getting on with, but be here present and do what they're doing, they're obviously caring enough. And there are possibly, or I think probably, those that don't have our welfare and compassion,
oh, absolutely.
have our welfare in as their priority, and therefore that they don't have the compassion.
There
That
are
others,
some meanies out there, Vina.
yeah, I'm
There are
sure.
some meanies out there for real. But fortunately, I was told back then, by my guide, that we do have species that not only protect us, but are basically running things here. And I had someone on my Facebook group that literally said, oh no, there's no aliens here. Which to me is just preposterous, but to each his own. You know, I don't force anything on anyone. You have to believe what you believe. But I just happen to know for a fact they're here. Um, and there are some super baddies out there, and we do need protection because we're basically infants out there. I mean, even what I saw years ago of these creatures out there, specifically those crystal bio creatures, that could manipulate their ship. Uh, they're so much more advanced than we are.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah. I've seen a ship with different layers of colors. So, for example, if you've got red and green and blue, for example, the controls, I went into the control room. This was
ah,
just in a journey. Um, and the different colors could take them into different, what's the word, realms. So
yes,
the blue, they were in a certain frequency there. And if they wanted to, I was aware that they were in the back, but I didn't see them, but I could see what the controls are for. So then if they wanted to go to the next reality, they would then use the red ones and they would be instantly in the red reality and in the green somewhere else
fascinating.
as well. So I just thought, wow, and we think we're clever here on Earth and they have that kind of technology.
And Vina, those colors, I mean, their colors are frequency,
Yeah.
so what you're saying makes perfect sense. Yes.
Dimensions, they
Definitely.
go into different dimensions with the different colors.
Yes, absolutely. And something else that I was told back then during my near-death experience is that there are several planets in our solar system that we'll never see because they're different density, not dimension, but density, which is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the scientific people out there will understand that. I don't. But um, and it's funny because even now they're finding more and more like exo worlds or this planet. So you know all that is certainly possible and more, much more.
And that kind of, I think that leads us naturally to the parts in your book that are about, out there in space or in different dimensions. There are no politics, there's no reincarnation, there's no, um,
There is
uh,
reincarnation.
sorry,
No politics. You said no reincarnation.
sorry, I didn't mean, I didn't mean no religion, no politics. But
Right.
there is reincarnation, of course, yes. And so that means that they have found ways of harmonizing with each other and working with each other in the space of love. And I
Right.
think that,
Because if you think about it, there's duality here in this dimension, um, and on other worlds, but there is no opposing sides. There's no duality in the spiritual realm. It's all one. The both, and that's where I talked about the harmony in the beginning in the white realm. It's perfect harmony because everything has been balanced out. And in the book, I use the word null. Love is the null spot because it's not good, it's not bad, it's everything. So yeah, so there's no opposing sides over there. So there's no politics, and I am very political here. Um
well,
very much so.
this is the opportunity here to do that. So I think,
Exactly.
whatever is
Exactly.
available and you want to do it, that's why we have drama here. If you like the drama and you want to participate and have, oh, woe is me, terrible moments, it's all here
Oh,
for that experience. So
absolutely.
fine. It's good. It's all good.
Yes, it is. It really is, Vina. It is all good.
Yeah, and so I think you've concluded with love being your goal and the thing that you want to bring and do here more than anything.
Oh, absolutely. Because, I've seen some near death. I try not to watch or look at many, um, because everyone has their own individual aspect of where they're coming from. But it really bothers me when people say they didn't want to come back, which I can understand. But the
Mm,
problem is we chose to come here. And so while I am here, since I know I chose to come here, I want to try to do everything with love, with that frequency of love. And I told you that I have a quote in my book. Um, Love is not a relationship with someone, but a way of life with everything. And that's how I want to live. Um, and that's why I have such a zest for life. I didn't mind coming back. Even when I had my experience with the void, through the void, I wanted to be back here because I chose this for reasons that I need to accomplish. Um, and so the best way for me to go about that is to live my life with love, connecting to that love, living it with love, as best I can. And I'm going to fail, and I do many times, many times.
welcome
Um,
to being human.
right.
Is there a perfect one? Have you met a perfect human that loves all the time?
This is
Like,
not, this is not
not
the
the place. No,
place for that. It's just not.
no. This is the place to see the contrast, isn't it? Is to actually see,
Yes.
all the other side and then decide which side do I want to be? What experience do I like the most? What do I want to bring into my life and the lives of others around me, our children, our relatives, our friends, our loved ones? What do we want? Do we want the arguing and the battling and the disagreeing and the, terrible, terrible things that people can be with each other? Or do I want to have lovely conversations and laugh and giggle and have joy and feel comfort and security? And we're all making those choices in every moment. It's up
We
to each of
are.
us individually.
We really are.
And
That's beautiful. I love that you
the
just
gift
said.
of thank you. The gift of a near-death experience is that it brings you towards that conclusion, doesn't it? It
It
just
does.
because you're shown absolutely without any doubt in your mind, my goodness, I went here, I experienced that, I've seen that, I now know this I didn't know before because I could have read it in a book, but it wouldn't have the same impact. Because you've actually experienced it, you can make that decision and then be committed to it, 100% committed for the rest of your life, because you're never going to lose that memory. It's never going to leave you. Um,
No,
you be
no,
unsure and think, does life exist? Is there a source? Should I bother? You don't have that. There's no need for you to have that anymore.
exactly, exactly. So it definitely has helped me live this life in a much, I think, better way than I ever would have. And I'm just so thankful, that I chose it. I thank myself and I thank my guide. And just, I just want to be true to that love as much as I can. But like I said, I certainly have my moments, as we all do. But as long as we keep striving, we're helped so much from the other side. We don't realize that, but we really are.
Hmm, beautiful. That's lovely. Thank you. Is there one last thing you would like to say to our audience before we finish?
Absolutely. One more time. I love the British open mind. Thank you. Um, and what I just said about striving, um, that is so important. That is something that I did see. In other words, if we put forth the energy um, to help ourselves and to live in the most positive way we can, we are helped from the other side more than we realize. Um, we all have a guide, we or several. Some of us have more than one, and we're all helped. And I think the most important message my guide told me was to be kind above all else, because that kindness carries that loving energy and it does leapfrog. Um, and it literally like goes on and on. It doesn't die. So that's probably it.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the information. And people can get your book. Do you want to just show us it and tell us
Oh,
the title
sure.
again? On Amazon? So my near-death experience from, well, in England we say from A to Z. I know
Oh, that's right. That's right. A to Z.
so if you're in America, it's my near-death experience from A to Z. But if you're in England, it's my near-death experience from A to Z,
I
and it's
love
available
that.
on Amazon.
I love that. And I do have the YouTube channel, my NDE from A to Z. Um, yes, and I do several Q&A sessions on there each week. So yes, and I just want to thank you for doing what you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you very
Need
much.
it.
Thank you.
And I will definitely be checking out intention meditation.
Thank you.
Oh, I
So,
will.
Venia Appreciation Society.
Us Venus got to stick together, right?
You do, yes. We're the girls that have got to, yes,
That's
do this
right.
right. Yeah, so lovely talking to you, Vina.
You too.
Okay, I'm going to end the podcast now.